Welcome to Weekly Digest, where we highlight the works of ministers of government as they push the administration's development agenda. Permanent Secretary of the Public Works Ministry, Vladimir Prasad, on Sunday signed a contract with Modern Construction and Trucking Services for the emergency construction of an improved B-Field-Sophia Bridge. The contract, valued at some $50 million, will span a period of 3 months and will see a brand new bridge being built to replace the previous one, which had been in a dilapidated state for some time.
It's in a deplorable state, and we want to make sure that we could correct the situation here because it's a bridge that is used by the entire community and visitors outside of Sophia to be able to access residents and other facilities in here.
Minister within the Public Works Ministry, gov't Indar, told residents that the new bridge would be of very good quality. He reminded residents of the government's recent commitment to building the bridge and its timely intervention.
Ministers Kwame, Onish and Colin Kroll and myself came here a few weeks ago. We made the commitment. The President of Guyana and Vice President quickly said, let's go out to tender. I want to let you know it's emergency works, and because of the emergency nature of the bridge, we went to restrictive tender, and the best contractor based on the tender submitted won.
Several government ministers fanned out across the community of North Sophia, Georgetown on Sunday morning as part of the administration's National Cleanup Initiative.
We are here this morning continuing what could be best described as President Ali's initiative of a cleanup of the entire country. This has been an ongoing exercise. This morning there are several of my colleagues in the Sophia area, and we're working with the community, and I would want to first of all commend the members of the community development councils. As you can see, the officers of the Sophia or Turkine police station, they are here with a few ranks from the GDF who's providing transportation for us this morning.
Minister within the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for public affairs, Kwame McCoy, underscored that the cleanup exercise is more than just a beautification project by the government.
It is important for us as a society. It is about our image. It's about what we project to the outer world, and therefore we have to be able to be responsible enough to be able to understand that we keep our environment clean. We don't dump in front of our yards. We don't dump on the road corners because it would affect us, our children and grandchildren and everything else. So I would like the people of Sophia, like I would like every other Guyanese across the country, to be very conscious of the need for them to stop littering.
Tourism, Industry and Commerce Minister Onej Walrand, Minister within the Housing and Water Ministry Susan Rodriguez, and Minister within the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development Anand Prasad were also part of the cleanup drive. As part of the government's efforts to fully equip persons with the requisite skills and knowledge to fortify the workforce, some 37 residents of Bena Hill and neighboring communities in Region 9 graduated from the Ministry of Labor's Board of Industrial Training Program on Friday last. The ceremony was held at the Green Enterprise Center, Region 9. Some 16 persons graduated from the Welding and Fabrication Program, while 21 received certification in commercial food preparation. Labor Minister Joseph Hamilton, in delivering the feature address, reiterated that the approach is consistent with the government's manifesto commitment to giving Guyanese the opportunity to acquire lifelong skills.
Don't be shy and bashful when government brings services to you, any service. You take it because, as I have said, it is your money being utilized on you. Understand that.
The minister told the graduating batch that being multi-skilled and multi-talented in today's society is integral to one's development. The National Assembly on Monday evening gave approval for government to utilize an additional $47 billion to further advance major transformation projects in various sectors across Guyana. The supplementary funding, which was successfully passed in the House, saw some $1.3 billion being allocated to the Office of the Prime Minister to cover additional costs incurred by power companies in Regions 1, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
All of this monies that are requested under the Office of the Prime Minister is because of significant rise in fuel prices over the last year, And these power companies operate on subsidies, as you know, and the original subsidy that was planned under the voted provisions at the beginning of the year did not foresee that kind of market fluctuation. Everybody who lives in reality knows that these power companies, they buy fuel, and we have seen a 65% increase in the cost for fuel.
The Ministry of Agriculture received an additional $3 billion to provide resources for operational expenses at the Guyana Sugar Corporation, GAISUCO, and the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, NDIA.
As you rightly mentioned, $1 billion has been allocated to GAISUCO for operating expenses, and those are expenses relating to the operation of these estates in terms of factories, rehabilitation of critical areas in the factory, rehab the plantation, the cultivation, just put new lands into cultivation. As a matter of fact, under the AP and UAFC, 23,000 hectares of land were abandoned by them with the closure of Wales, Rosal, Enmore, and Skellen Estate. We were able to put back approximately 2,000 hectares already under cultivation at Rosal.
As part of the supplementary, the sum of $18.1 billion will be spent on upgrading drains and roads in more than 1,000 communities. The Human Services and Social Security Ministry was also allocated $24 million for the provision of additional resources to meet the dietary needs of children who receive services at state homes. Meanwhile, the National Assembly also approved over $2.9 billion in advances under the contingency fund. The House approved the sum of $1.7 billion that was spent for additional resources to support the Linden Electricity Company, Inc. in Region 10.
As fuel went up on the world market, the supplier basically included that cost and passed it on to us. So there have been several increases, and this request was made to cover all the increases. The overriding factor here, Mr. Speaker, was to ensure that the people in Linden and its environment have electricity.
Accordingly, the $54.1 million that was spent by the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs was approved. It accounts for over $5 million that was exhausted to host the National Tushaus Council Conference and $48.8 million for the hosting of the Amerindian Heritage Month activities. The National Registration Amendment Bill and the Representation of the People Amendment Bill were also passed in an effort to promote free, fair, and transparent elections. Presenting both bills, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Senior Counsel Anil Nandlal, said the two bills are important pieces of legislation as they seek to prevent a recurrence of the disastrous events immediately following the 2020 general and regional elections. Fixed periods for voter registration, regular removal of deceased persons from the official list of electors, and cyclical issuance of national identification cards are among the significant amendments to the National Registration Act. The ROPA provides for an adequate number of polling stations to accommodate the electorate and divides Regions 3, 4, and 6 into sub-districts. ROPA was supported by Minister of Home Affairs Robeson Ben, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly Lennox Schumann, Minister of Public Service Sonia Parag, Member of Parliament Sanjeev Datadin, Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance Gail Teixeira, Minister of Natural Resources Vikram Bharat, and Minister of Agriculture Zulfikar Mustafa. The two bills are in keeping with the government's commitment to fostering inclusivity and transparency in the electoral process. Students of Rossignol Region 5 will no longer have to travel to Region 6 or Georgetown to pursue the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Exam (CAPE) program. The program was officially launched by the Ministry of Education at the Rossignol Secondary School on Tuesday. This forms part of the government's efforts to provide equitable access to education across the country. Education Minister Priya Manikchand, during remarks, highlighted that this move aligns with the government's vision of ensuring every child across Guyana has access to education. The minister underscored that it was important that the CAPE program was brought closer to the students in the region who are desirous of pursuing the program.
We have a burning duty in the education sector, and it's urgent, and it can be delayed, and it can be put off. We have to make sure we prepare each and every child, regardless of color, religion, geographic location, gender, income bracket from the homes they come, to be able to actively participate in this thriving Guyana we're going to build out.
Massive infrastructural works are ongoing in the new Cummings Lodge housing development, which starts from Sophia, Greater Georgetown, and ends in the vicinity of Eccles on the East Bank, Demerara. Minister of Housing and Water Colin Crowell, during a visit to the area on Tuesday, said some $1.4 billion is being invested in developing the area. Among the works being undertaken include land clearing and creation of road networks, such as the Aubrey Barker Access Road. The minister noted that a number of persons who were allocated house lots in the areas will begin to access their lands next week.
Initially, we were concentrating on the further closer to Sophia, and that is where we constructed the houses. The next development that happened was there were allocations that were done many years ago, and no infrastructure work was done in the last government tenure. And so immediately when we came back into office, we sought to ensure that we made resources available for the back here to do a number of infrastructure work.
Some 700 house lots were allocated to residents through the Ministry of Housing and Water, Central Housing and Planning Authority's Dream Realized Housing Drive on Wednesday. The exercise was hosted at the Synthetic Track and Field Facility, Region 3. Delivering the feature remarks, Housing and Water Minister Colin Crowell stated that the government will continue to ensure it fulfills its commitments to the people.
We have a government that understands the necessity of ensuring that we are able to respond to the plight of our people. You have a government that is caring, that is not only looking at your infrastructural needs, but also your social needs, and housing is one such.
Meanwhile, Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, Susan Rodriguez, emphasized that the housing drive aims to ensure affordable homeownership to Guyanese across the country. As part of the government's commitment to provide affordable homeownership with the expanding housing sector, some 28 persons in Region 3 who have been pre-approved for the cement and steel housing subsidy will receive the materials within 2 weeks. Housing and Water Minister Colin Crowell made the disclosure on Wednesday at the ministry's Dream Realized Housing Drive in Region 3 at the Lenore Synthetic Track and Field Facility.
So one can see within the next 2 weeks or as early as next week, vouchers being issued to those persons for them to uplift, depending on the type of infrastructure work they're doing, for them to uplift their cement, or in most cases, their cement and steel.
Any person who owns land is eligible for the program as long as they have a development plan that has received pre-approval. Persons constructing homes for $6 million or less are eligible for steel and 1 sling of cement for the foundation. Homes that cost more than $6 million and up to $25 million will receive 2 slings of cement. The Ministry of Home Affairs, in partnership with GTT Mobile Money Guyana, MMG, launched its mobile payment services for the General Register Office, GRO, and Immigration Support Services. This payment platform will allow online applications and payments for services such as birth certificates, work permits, and extensions of visas from the convenience of the home or anywhere on electronic devices. Minister of Home Affairs Robeson Ben expressed the need to add more services.
I'm pleased that we are finally at this point when we took office. Originally, the first few things we thought of in terms of providing more efficient, more efficacious service to the public was putting more and more things online, because we recognized that people were taking a lot of time and a great deal of effort, particularly those who come from far off places in Guyana. You know how large our country is.
Some 100 men from the joint services received training through the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security's Community Advocate Network on Wednesday. The training forms part of the ministry's efforts to eradicate gender-based violence against women and girls as 16 days of activism continues. Human Services and Social Security Minister Dr. Vindhya Prasad said the training will aid the members of the joint services to be more efficient as they carry out their duties.
Here they're going to go through a day where they will become ambassadors or advocates within the community advocate network. So they will learn about all the services that deal with violence. They will understand their role and responsibilities as policemen and members of the defense forces and the prison services when it comes to responding, being more efficient and prompt in their response, and also the way they ought to conduct themselves in that response.
The officers will receive training on the introduction to gender and masculinity, information on the 914 hotline, the legal pro bono initiative, anger management, information on the ICANN manual, trafficking in persons, and the Child Care Act. As the National Insurance Scheme, NIS, continues to make aggressive steps towards resolving several of its age-old issues countrywide, the agency was successful in its second phase of outreaches in Region 6. Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashley Singh, led a team to the ancient county at the weekend, where a number of issues were resolved on spot.
Our objective is to address all of the frustrations that anybody might have, whatever your problems might be. This is, of course, part of our broader effort as a government to try to improve the quality of service that we provide, our institutions provide to people.
He stated that while the exercise was extremely productive and most persons were assisted, there are still a number of issues which have to be assessed at the head office.
It's not going to happen overnight, but our government and our president are very impatient that not only do we clear up the backlog of problems that we inherited when we came into office, but that we also address the institutional weaknesses that need to be addressed to ensure that going forward, these problems become fewer and ultimately, are eliminated.
As the government continues to prioritize the production of coconut in Guyana, the Brazilian green dwarf coconut variety was launched on Wednesday at the Hope Estate Nursery, East Coast, Demerara. This is a joint effort of the Ministry of Agriculture's Hope Coconut Industries Limited and the Caribbean Agriculture Research and Development Institute. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa, in delivering remarks, stated that the government remains keen on coconut production. To date, Minister Mustafa highlighted that $1.5 billion was earned from the export of coconut and its byproducts. As such, the government will continue to inject large budgetary allocations in the agriculture sector.
We have heard that coconut production and coconut in our country has become the third most important crop. But over the next few years, you will see many, many more important crops coming in place than what we used to know of. You will see in another 3 years from now, Guyana will be self-sufficient in producing all its corn and soya for the livestock industry. What we have been doing over the last 2 years, we have been working with the private sector and other counterpart to produce more value-added products. We are looking to develop all the husks, the shell, the meat, the coconut water, so that we can have a total package coming out of Guyana.
Residents of Masakanari Guns Village in Region 9 will benefit from quality healthcare with the introduction of the Telemedicine clinic in the community. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony formally launched the pilot program in Region 9 on Wednesday at the Guns Village Clinic.
This is a pilot that we are running, but from all that we've seen so far and the way that this has worked so far, it's very promising. And the team at Georgetown Hospital is going to be available to support the community health workers. So by doing that, we are now twinning some of the best in medicine with those persons who are in the remote communities.
Community health workers will gain access to expertise from doctors and specialists in Georgetown via tablets and other electronic devices to deliver health services to residents.